Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm your host, Jeff Howard, and I've got filmmaker... Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm Jeff Howard, and I've got filmmaker Pirie Martin with me. Hey, Pirie.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Look, thank you for being here. We are on Zoom, if that's not obvious. Pirie is in Australia. Should we name the city?
Yeah, I'm in Adelaide, South Australia.
Adelaide, South Australia.
The nicest city in Australia.
I hear that a lot, actually. We have, I have a couple friends from Adelaide who are now LA based. Lord knows in LA, this is unrelated to you and your film, but when you live in Los Angeles, you start to think that, wow, Australia must have a population of hundreds of millions because there's so many Australians in Los Angeles. But maybe it's an LA thing? I don't know.
Adelaide's got very similar weather to LA, so maybe we're just comfortable. You know, we just kind of get it.
Maybe.
So,
all right. Well, you are on this
very creative.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
I know. By the way, and that's a perfect example. Part of my Zoom disclaimer is that if you don't like the audio quality, or if we sound like we're stepping on each other verbally, it's because there's this little micro delay when you talk on Zoom. And I've never researched if the delay is longer if you're further apart, but Lord knows our voices and images are traveling from Los Angeles to Adelaide, Australia. So I did not mean to interrupt Pirie. I just did that.
Right. That's all good. I hope the sound quality is right. I've got a new mic just to do these sort of things. So because I'm aware that the distance does degrade the quality quite a bit. Hopefully everything's okay.
Yeah, and I have a new mic behind me in a box, but I'm still using my previous one because the mic stand I bought for it doesn't work. Very important information for everyone to hear. All right, Pirie is here because your film Psychosis was an official selection at the Sherman Oaks Film Festival in 2023, last year, in the category feature film horror. And although we could talk about how it's multi-genre, it's a multi-hyphenate kind of film because I think it's so great. Obviously, I love the film, or you wouldn't be on this podcast. But I will mention that you won the Grand Jury Award for Best Screenplay for a feature film, and Psychosis won the Audience Award for Best Feature Film Horror. And I would assume that you had a good festival run, and those aren't the only awards because, man, this is a great film.
Oh, thank you. We did have quite a good festival run. It's always difficult from the filmmaker's side because you submit to 100 festivals and you get rejected from 90 of them. So it never feels like a great festival run. But no, all things considered, it was really good. We premiered at Popcorn Frights, which was great. And we were nominated for Best Film there. We were actually nominated among almost exclusively Australian filmmakers as well, which was like quite good. We completely took over that festival. And then we won Best Experimental Horror at Horrorfest International. We won a few more awards. We were nominated for quite a few. We won Best Actor at the Vesuvius International Awards in Italy. I don't want to forget any. Philadelphia Unnamed Film Festival, we won the Grand Jury Prize for Best Feature, which was really nice. And off the top of my head, I'm sure there's another one, but they might just be the Sherman Oaks ones that I'm omitting because you've already listed them. So yeah, we did have a really great run, and we got a lot of really good feedback as well, especially from the places that were able to show Psychosis in the cinema because we were primarily virtual. Popcorn Frights was virtual, which I don't actually have too much of a problem with because I think we reached more people that way. In the end, I just wanted the film to be seen in surround sound because we put a lot of work into the audio for the film with the hallucinogenic kind of voices that the lead character hears. They are supposed to come from like all corners around your head, and I think most people probably watched the film on like an iPad or a laptop with headphones on. But given the response, obviously it's still cut through even if you're watching it on a small screen with headphones. So yeah, I couldn't be happier really with the festival run, given the scale of the film and kind of the genre. Like it's not the most easily accessible kind of content. So to have it be so well received was quite a nice surprise.
Yeah, well, I imagine if somebody if you pitched it at somebody and said it's a bit of a crime noir film, but it's also has horror elements and art house elements, people might give you a strange look. But I mean, I think we discussed this when we did a Zoom Q&A last year when you were in the festival, which is that you have such good screenwriting instincts that your first scene is such a hook. Like I would, like if someone has, I mean, obviously, right, one of the best ways to watch a film is to know nothing about it and just sit down and watch it, and the film presents itself to you. And when and that's actually, I intentionally watch films as a member of the selection jury that way. Like I don't read up what the director wrote about it. You know, I don't read the cover letter. I just let the film talk to me. And Psychosis grabs me with that very first scene.
Oh, good. I was a little worried about this because the film opens on almost a minute and a half of black, with just the auditory hallucinations going. And my fear was that if anyone has their volume set too low, or, you know, I wonder how many festivals I missed out on because the selection committee would sort of, they were like, I think something's broken, and then skip it. But yeah, so I'm glad, because that was the intention of that opening. Obviously, you need to introduce a lot quite quickly and make sure that people get it and that they are willing to stick around. And you know, the film changes quite a lot as well. So like the opening scene is not necessarily where the film ends up going. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that, because there were a few elements of the film where I was always, I think I'm taking quite a big risk here. And then to hear the feedback almost always being like those were everyone's favorite bits, like the strange aspect ratio of the film, or it's quite a long opening scene as well, because I'm setting so much up and you have to introduce the kind of surrealness of it in a very grounded way. But to hear that that's almost like the drawing card of the film is actually quite nice. Like it really validates sort of all these weird choices that I made.
I'm glad it does, because those choices are great. And honestly, anybody, I mean, I don't know anyone who didn't enjoy it. Although I've debated whether or not I would share this with you, but I don't know if you know this, but like when you became an official selection for Sherman Oaks Film Festival in December of last year, this was one of those films that I'm so glad I run 2 festivals, because I believe you submitted it to Film Invasion Los Angeles that we hold in June.
I did, yes.
And I had watched it, and I normally don't share, and I'd given it the highest rating I give is a 9 out of 10, and I'd given it a 9 out of 10. And then when I saw it as a member of the Sherman Oaks jury, I said something like, motherfucker, why the fuck wasn't this in Film Invasion? Like, I was, you know what I mean? I was like, I've seen this before. This is great. And, you know, I wonder if maybe a couple people in the jury might have been thrown by the black in the beginning. But, you know, I was one of those people who was like, that happens to me sometimes, where I'm just so glad that if someone submits to both festivals, it helps me prevent jury failings.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's a film that is going to split audiences to some extent. I know that there have been some people who just do not enjoy listening to effectively the experience of schizophrenic hallucinations. And I can appreciate that. Like there are just going to be some people that don't gel with that style. But it is also quite arbitrary sometimes. Like the Philadelphia Unnamed Film Festival, where we won the top award, we were originally rejected from that festival. And then we got in because someone else pulled out, and we were kind of just outside of the selection. Yeah, and then we got bumped up as like a wild card, and then we won. So from that, I've just taken that, you know, film festivals are a bit chaotic sometimes, and
there's a lot of moving parts for sure.
Yeah,
but I personally, when I saw it again, I was like, well, I already shared with you my reaction. But to what you said about laptops, I have to admit, I think I told you this once, that I watch. We have a little media room in our house. We're not fancy people, but there's a little room that's like not too big, but I love music too. So there's like good speakers in there.
Yeah.
So I watched your film in a very close to cinematic environment, you know, because 52-inch TV that you're only 12 feet away from is almost as big as a movie screen. And I've got nice big British, I got a pitch. Got to give credit to Kef out of England, Kef speakers, KEF. Those are great speakers, and Center Channel. And so I experienced the attention to detail that you talked about for sure, that someone on a laptop or watching screeners on their computer, with computer speakers, where they were going to miss.
Yeah, it's one of those things you either watch it or you watch it with good headphones. I've watched it with like TV speakers and stuff. It works. It still works quite well. And I did make sure that it wasn't going to be crap on like, even if you watch it on your phone, it has to be still good. But yeah, it is nice. I always tell people, like, wear some good headphones if you get the chance to watch it on your computer.
There are every once in a while I do see a screener where there's a card. There's a title card at the beginning of the film that says, please watch this with headphones or surround. Like, I've seen that. And I always think, well, this filmmaker is, I understand the passion, but good luck.
It still needs to work on every platform. I definitely have sympathy for the people who don't have access to like the best display and audio quality. You still want to make sure that they can enjoy. And some of my best viewing experiences have been watching a low-res copy of a film on a plane. So, if the film is good, it should work anywhere. But yeah, there's obviously like the Christopher Nolan argument of you should watch it in IMAX in one of these 3 cinemas that are only available in these parts of the world to get the correct viewing experience. But yeah.
That's I understand him, and he's ridiculous.
Yeah.
and you're even open-minded about phones. It's funny. I mean, it drives me insane that people watch film on phones.
Yeah.
iPads bad enough.
Yeah. I think you just have to accept what people do to a certain extent. I think I'll turn people away by enforcing a certain viewing experience.
Yeah, and actually in theory, a phone with AirPods in, they're actually going to get a very good auditory experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The only problem with my film is because of the crop, it is very small on a phone. It's a very tiny little box of a film. So, but kids are getting better these days at watching a lot of stuff on phones. So maybe the scale is something people have gotten used to and no longer create such a problem.
I don't mean to tease her. She doesn't listen to this anyway, but our 17-year-old, she will sit on the couch in front of the TV watching the movie on her phone. And I'm like, there's a 52-inch TV in front of you. There's a remote. Yeah. Turn it on. You can even throw it from your phone to the TV. It's got AirPlay. Do it. And she just looks at me and goes, I like watching it on my phone. I think it's because then I don't know what she's looking at.
Possibly. Yeah. Well, it's created its own kind of cultural use in a way, and people have gotten used to that. And if that's where people are going, I guess we'll have to start making films shot in such a way that they're clear on a phone, or it'll be becoming one of those really cynical considerations people have to make now.
I should jump into your creative life and the film again, but I have to share that someone I know had a meeting, and I won't name them because I'm just weird about that nowadays, but one of the major streaming platforms said to this writer I know that we'd like for you to write for 2 screens now. And they said, what? And they said, just know that your audience has a phone in front of them and they're going to be on that phone. So if you have an important plot point, make sure the characters say it twice, because they might be looking at their phone the first. So they're literally coaching people to make to dumb television down for people who aren't paying attention because they have a phone. And
I probably draw the line there. I find that with Psychosis, especially because it is a film that you need to pay attention to understand. And I started getting a few reviews where it was obvious that the person who watched it either missed a detail or wasn't really paying attention. Maybe they watch 10 screeners a day to do reviews or whatever. And I'm sympathetic to that. But at the same time, if you're going to mark a film down, you need to know the difference between someone's sister and someone's wife, or you need to have been paying attention to like when certain pieces of information are kind of peppered throughout a film. That's not like the film is very hallucinogenic and chaotic on purpose. And it's, trying to be authentic to the experience of having a very confusing condition. So for me, for people to not be paying attention to a film, like that's their loss. Like don't reward them for being inattentive.
It is their loss. Yeah. And if they're watching it distracted, they have no right to write a review, if you ask me.
Exactly. Yeah.
Feel free to not enjoy it, but don't write a review if you were playing, I can't even name a popular game, but, whatever.
Yeah.
If you're popping bubbles on your phone, if you're busy doing if you're doing the New York Times crossword during a film, fine, but don't write a review. My God, don't.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on reviews. Then we'll never get to your personal story. All right, tell me your story. I warned you in advance that I love to hear people's personal stories. So I didn't bother in the introduction of mentioning that what a multi-hyphenate you were here. Besides, writing, directing, producing. I know you did even more. I know you did a lot of the technical stuff too. So
yeah.
So what got you? Was it creativity first? Were you just a creative kid, or did you discover filmmaking and fall in love with that?
It was kind of everything. I've got artistic parents. My dad's an artist, like printmaker, cartoonist, illustrator, and he used to be a school art teacher. So he was not only good at art, he was very good at communicating art to kids. So I was stuck with that. And my mum's quite a good artist, graphic designer. She's a good writer as well. So I was always surrounded by artistic stuff, and my parents were always encouraging me to draw and, write and imagine and play games. And my mum was very into film, and she had quite interesting film taste. So she'd watch, and she wasn't scared of showing my brother and I horror movies, or obviously nothing too extreme. She'd have to watch it before she showed us. But I think I would have been around 4 or 5 when Jurassic Park came out, and our parents wanted to show us that because of the dinosaurs. And so while I was already quite interested in writing and stuff like that, the moment we watched Jurassic Park, and that being such a realistic film for its time for a 4-year-old, I think my brother and I both had to run away. We thought that the dinosaurs were real. But we loved it so much, and we were so scared by it, that our parents decided that we needed to see how it was made so that we didn't get scared that the dinosaurs were back alive again and might come and get us. So they showed us the behind the scenes video, the Stan Winston, how they made all the animatronic dinosaurs, and how they did the audio design for all the dinosaurs. And I think the film was one thing, but seeing that documentary was what set me on film, because it looked really fun. It looked like they were playing games, like what kids do. You get toys and you can experiment and you can live in an imaginary world. But it was also robots. It was dinosaurs. It was everything that I was into at the time in a career path. So even as a kid, I was well, that's what I want to do. I just want to make movies and create worlds and imagine things that are impossible and make them that realistic and that kind of enough that I could be scared or believe that it was real. And I think since I was about 5, that's been pretty much all I've wanted to do. I did filmmaking all through school. Every project where they'd let us do a video, I'd make a film and submit that. I think we made a 15-minute war epic during our history class one year. We did a Australia versus the Japanese on the Kokoda Trail. We did a little war film set on that. Anything that would let us do to film and video. And if they weren't for school, we were doing them just for fun as kids. I think I tried to make a feature film when I was 16 or 17 and failed. And then film school, I met a bunch of fellow filmmakers that I got along with really well. We started a commercial filmmaking company. So we did ads and government videos for 10 years. And then that kind of took over a little bit. So there's a big gap in my resume for filmmaking where we were just doing corporate work. And after a period of that, I got really frustrated because I just wanted to make films. So we ended up doing a round of short films. We all made a short film each. We did like a bunch, which we then all submitted to festivals around the same time. And that did quite well. We won, I can't remember how many awards. I think that accumulatively it was something like 15 awards that we got for our short films. And I thought, well, we could keep doing this, or I could just make a feature and it's commercial. Because we had that problem of short films being, they go out, they go to the festivals, but then people don't really give a shit after the festival run. Like short films kind of die unless they are like a really big horror viral hit. They kind of disappear. At least like back in 2015, that was the kind of experience. And
I want to confirm what you're saying, because even the films that win the Oscar for best live action short,
yeah,
people talk about them maybe for a few months. Like people have heard of such and such. A year later, it's like it didn't happen.
Yeah, and I had a friend of mine. He made 2 really great short films, and he spent, I reckon, $5,000 to $10,000 on each one, hiring equipment. And I thought, I reckon we could do a feature for that. I reckon we could, why are we putting that much into a short when there are people like Robert Rodriguez? And, I know that it's very different now because everyone can kind of do that. But I thought it's achievable to use, we've got the equipment, we can make a professional looking short film. Why don't we make 10 short films and have it be related? Like if something goes wrong, we've got a bunch of, like that was what we were thinking of. And through that process, I started trying to write a feature. And that was how Psychosis came about. It was kind of a bunch of little ideas that I had that had all died on their own. But once I started combining all of the elements, it kind of took on its own life. And that's partly why the film is multi-genre, I think, because a lot of it was us trying to showcase our abilities. But as these ideas started coming together, like I wanted to do something that featured hypnosis because I was really interested in it. I'd done some research on auditory hallucinations. I really like horror. I really like zombie films. Like it ended up being, if you can convert zombie to mind-controlled, goon, then you get to do that. And as I started piling all of these ideas together and making them fit and have their own logic as to how these things could all be interrelated, I just got really excited, and I just thought, well, let's just make a feature. Like, why not? So it kind of got assembled like a Frankenstein almost. And obviously after a certain point, you have to start taking it much more seriously than just like throwing ideas around. And it became quite a massive project. But that was kind of how it all started. And so it's really only been the last 5 or so years, especially around COVID, because our business, we don't run our corporate business anymore. That all kind of died during COVID, that we've just decided to dedicate ourselves to film. So that's where I'm at now.
And I remember from your Q&A last year, I mean, one of the things, and you hinted at this, but one of the things that I think makes Psychosis so good and so successful is that I recall you said that there were things you learned during the commercial corporate era of your filmmaking life that you learned techniques and you learned methods and strategies in a way, and you're like, oh, I can pull in all the knowledge I've learned over the last decade and make something much better than you would have 10 years earlier. If like right out of university you'd made a feature, you wouldn't have had as fertile ground really in your mind to work with.
Yeah, and I think the thing where most filmmakers who don't have as much experience do fall down is like it's the scheduling, it's the logistics of it. It's not the creative side often, especially these days when the equipment is so good. People can come out of university with incredibly good visual storytelling skills, but they don't have the experience to know how long it takes to get a Steadicam ready or how long a dolly shot adds. And so they just jump into it. I see that a lot with friends of mine doing films, and that you find out they're like 6 hours behind schedule on day one. And you're like, okay, something went wrong in the scheduling. Like there's nothing wrong with their ability. It's just that they haven't done enough of these shoots. And like we did so many shoots where it was just like set up equipment, get the lighting right, shoot it, move on. Like we just kind of got ingrained into us that I could just say, we're doing this many shots. All right, that's going to take us this long. And we get an hour lunch break, or like it's going to be 15 minutes a shot on this day, 10 minutes a shot on that day. We get an hour a shot on that day. And I don't think we ever went over schedule. I think there were days where things went wrong and we had to scrap things and come back. But on the days where, you know, the weather didn't kill us or the electricity at the location didn't cut out, I don't think we ever went over schedule, which was really nice. And a lot of the actors on our shoot were like, oh, nothing went wrong. They were like really impressed. So I'm quite happy about that. And I think that is because we'd spent 10 years doing corporate and other shorts and just had to be on top of that, because it's usually like corporate. If you go over budget, they don't want to pay you for that stuff. You get real good at getting it done on time.
But even at the screenplay level, right? I mean, you were thinking about the logistics at the screenplay level, but also the techniques and ways to make it more visually and auditorily interesting without breaking the bank.
No, and I also knew about a lot of locations that were available and weren't available based on corporate. Because doing corporate video is great because you effectively, it's like novelists get to like Google how to make bombs and stuff, and they get away with it because they're a novelist. And filmmakers get access to, we got into all these weird top secret places because some government agency wanted us to do a video. And so I got to see like the whole state over the course of 10 years, all these amazing places. And I was like, I'm going to keep that in mind. So I kind of knew what was available. We'd worked with a lot of different technicians and stuff over the years, so I kind of knew what they charge. And I could write the script. It's the reason why there aren't so many guns in the film. Obviously, like I'd love to have action movies and shootouts and stuff, but I knew how much an armorer cost per day. Even if we got mates rates from a guy that we knew, I knew that it was going to be really expensive. So I deliberately wrote the script to say, why can't they use a gun in this scene? Why doesn't he like to use his gun? And it really cut down how often we needed to use blanks or needed to have a gun on screen. So there were a lot of those kind of decisions that were made very early on to make sure that the film would be affordable with the budget level that we were at. Yeah.
And you just reminded me of another thing. I think I'm always drawn to a story where the hero is not defined by a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yep.
I'm a big Children of Men fan, and like Children of Men, Clive Owen's character never picks up. He's surrounded by guns and he never picks one up, but he's still the hero of the story through his mental abilities and outthinking opponents. And I think your lead character is the same.
Yeah. Well, he's anti-gun almost. Well, he's anti. He doesn't want to kill people. And even like towards the end, there's those sequences where they're having to disarm these kind of mind-controlled characters, and they have to like beat them up, but they don't want to go around. They're not doing John Wick stuff on people and throwing them out windows. Like they're apologizing when they hit someone too hard. And I liked taking that perspective rather than the much more gung-ho kind of action direction, because I've seen that a lot before and I get kind of sick of it because I'm quite an anti-violent person. I love violent movies, but there's a certain point beyond which like the violence is there just to make you feel tough, and I don't like that side of violence. So I prefer like necessary violence, or like asking questions about what is necessary and what is the right response. So like I don't mind a movie where there's a shootout, but you know, I don't just want it to be someone shooting people because it's cool.
You know, and I know he's a controversial filmmaker nowadays in some ways, but you make me think. Well, first of all, I think the word you made the word gratuitous pop into my head as far as the violent, right? There's a difference between essential to the story and gratuitous, but I also think I was setting myself up to mention Tarantino. Anyone who pays attention to his work should know it's more about what happens before the violence, right? It's like people standing around with guns pointed at each other. In a tense situation, that's storytelling. Once the guns go off, actually, the story is not moving forward anymore, right? It's just but it's the
Or it's the
intensity of
consequence of
impending violence. And with your film, with Psychosis, impending disaster or an impending violence is certainly a presence on screen. And that's right. That's what Hitchcock taught everybody as well, right? Like, put a bomb under the table and let the audience see it. And for 5 minutes, they're going to be freaking out about it.
Yeah. And I wonder if there was more, because obviously doing action and violence is so easy. I wonder if we had more situations where people landed like Spielberg in Jaws, where he wanted to show the shark, but he couldn't. And that made it better. Like if you can't do a shootout, how do you make that more tense? Like how do you avoid the shootout but make it interesting? Because I think it is easy to default to, everyone grabs a gun and starts shooting, but that's not actually where the audience connection is. That's more the reward for the story rather than the point of the story.
And if you don't have a massive budget, it just looks shitty anyway, right? Like the Marvel films have made action a whole different beast. And if someone's not going to jetpack up into the air and then send blasts, you know what I mean? Like it's just not interesting anymore.
Yeah, the standard has risen quite a lot. And I mean, even low budget, you can do extremely good quality effects, but you end up spending all your time if you need to make them really good, that becomes the focus of the filmmaking,
And in the end, you're making an indie film. Actually, it's a note I never give, but when people submit films and I'm like, well, this is just a low budget version of a Hollywood film. I'm like, that's not compelling. Like, you're just showing us that you want to make something like Hollywood makes, but you don't have the budget for it, and you didn't do anything. You didn't solve your problems with creativity. You just
yeah. And that's something I always try to steer clear of, because I know a lot of film buffs, because I don't necessarily classify myself as a cinema buff. I'm a filmmaking buff. So when people say, I want to make a film and it's going to be like Taxi Driver, or it's going to be like, I'm taking something from Coppola or Scorsese or Tarantino, and I get real bored because I'm like, where's the problem solving? I love the problem solving side of film, where it's like, how do we express this emotion or this character trait or this sequence in a way that isn't just like derivative of some other film or a reference? Because a lot of people just seem to love the references, and they get off on saying, it's like that bit in Taxi Driver where with the bubbles or something, like he zooms in on the drink, or the telephone shot, like these famous shots that people then just rip off because they're celebrating their favorite thing. But the thing that I enjoy the most is like, how else could we do that hasn't been done before? And that was part of why I wanted to do Psychosis in a square ratio, because we couldn't then do a whole bunch of things. Like you can't do fast pans, you can't do, side to side dolly shots and stuff as easily, because you don't have the visual range. It forces you to shoot in a completely new way, and it structures the edit in a completely different way. Like we had to do more of what Wes Anderson does with his central blocking and editing style than, a lot of the more default stuff, like the over the shoulder shots. Like we couldn't really do a lot of that. So I really enjoyed doing things that forced me to think about things in a different way, structurally and aesthetically, so that I'm not repeating something that's been done before as much as possible.
I mean, besides wanting to praise your originality and your goal for originality, I also can't help but notice, like, yes, you mentioned that really the brilliance of Jaws was that the mechanical shark broke, but that you gave yourself like that the aspect ratio you chose created limits that you had to work within, and it's like you broke your shark right there, and then you're and then people like myself and other people who love independent and original cinema are like, I haven't seen this before. Like right away, I haven't seen this before, and we are hooked. I would find it hard to believe that a film lover would watch Psychosis and not be drawn into it very quickly. Somebody, I guess I won't criticize the public, but maybe if somebody, I don't know, who doesn't like seeing something they haven't seen before? I mean, it just seems like, it makes me, the genius of Monty Python was, and now for something completely different. Like it's just,
yeah.
something new. The whole purpose is to create new things.
I appreciate the value in familiarity, though. Like I do. My mum watches a lot of Hallmark kind of romantic comedy, and she doesn't like them. Like she watches them and goes, "That was ridiculous," but she watches them because they're comfortable. And I get that, if you're a horror lover and you love slasher films, you don't really need them to reinvent the wheel. It's great when they do, but I think it's also comfortable to see something where you know kind of what's going to happen and you can put it on. It's kind of like comfort food film. There is definitely a place for it, but Psychosis is not comfort food. So for people that want, a new experience and want to go to like the weird new restaurant, that's more what it caters for. So
it's true, and I think are we not living in an era, or at least, well, maybe culture itself is broken up into camps now, right? But weird is no longer an insult. That's for sure. Like
no,
like
which
weird in the 80s. I can tell you, in the 80s, weird was not a compliment. But I think nowadays it is.
Yeah, I think A24 has done quite a lot for weird. They made mainstream weird acceptable, which is quite nice. I'm sure there's been a lot of others. That's the one that's probably like the most obvious and probably the most familiar to a lot of people. And I think also films becoming more widely available. Europe still makes really great weird movies, and they're becoming more available now. And people are starting to see and people are being influenced a lot by European cinema. So a lot of more independent filmmakers and up-and-coming filmmakers have watched a lot more weird stuff, and they're putting weird stuff into their movies, and that's going out to a more, like it's bleeding into the general audience a lot more, because like Asian cinema coming up over here, like it seems weird to us because we're not familiar with it, but like the influence of Korean cinema, like Psychosis was hugely inspired by Old Boy and other Korean films, and I love that side of film because I'm not as familiar with their filmmaking techniques. And like the Koreans love a good flashback, and I never see American and Australian and European cinema using like the flashback in the way that the Koreans use it. And so like I love all that sort of stuff because for me that's like novel storytelling techniques, and that's the stuff that I'm a big nerd about. But I think it is slowly becoming more and more, it's becoming normal, which is maybe a bad thing, that weird is getting normal and you have to keep pushing the bar.
there is the tinge of regret when your underground band gets popular. But I couldn't help but think, when you were talking, I was going to mention Korean cinema too, and if you think about it, like Parasite got so much praise. You watch Parasite, it's a strange story.
It is.
I mean, it's very no Hollywood studio would have Hollywood studio have ever said yes to that screenplay. Hell no.
But I can see that it fits really well into a lot of Korean TV and cinema that I've seen on Netflix. So like I watched it and I wasn't that surprised. But I can imagine people that aren't familiar with something like that being blown away by. They're like, you can do that, and you're allowed to do that. So yeah.
And these characters, like
yes,
like they didn't feel the need to make that family super likable. I mean, they were charming, very charming, but their behavior was quite condemnable. So, well, so Psychosis is part of the I'm lacking the language, the oeuvre of our time in a way that things it's multicultural and drawing from around the world and yet doing something original.
I hope that Psychosis will find a European audience or an Asian audience at some point. It's difficult at the moment. The release is obviously English focused because translation and all of that is expensive. But maybe one day if it keeps chugging along with a bit of a cult following, it'll get its release. Sorry if that audio came up then.
There is something funny going on with that, right? Because as different regions are getting embraced by others, but sometimes it's really hard to crack back into where it's coming from.
Yes. Well, it's just you just need the money to translate it into 50 languages. I know it's easier when you're a studio film. You can incorporate that at the start, but for an indie release, it's sort of we see how it does in the home territory, and then we'll expand, or then we'll look at And there's films that don't get a cinematic release until 20 years later. I think Mike Flanagan, Hush, that's just had its cinematic release, and that's been out for, I don't know, 5-10 years already. And that's off of the success of his other work, like Netflix work. And so films have a long lifetime still, and they still have.
I was unaware of that. Wow. I'm actually. Yeah. I think Hush is one of his better films.
But obviously, earlier films didn't get as much of a wide release.
Yeah.
And now that he's proved himself, they're going back to those old ones and saying, "Well, we'll remaster it. We'll put it in cinemas, and it gets the life that it maybe should have had." So yeah, that's kind of my hope. I think with any of these kind of films that have a bit more of a cult or an underground start, they have a longer lifespan than the hot release kind of content. So we'll see.
Sure. I mean, Lord knows there's nothing wrong with with a huge financial success, but the cult success I think means a lot. Like, you know, I wish I had the trivia in my head, but if I could name the films that came out the same month as Eraserhead.
Yes. Yeah.
Do we talk about any of those films, I guarantee there's kids of university age right now who are aware of Eraserhead, and they are not aware of whatever other films came out that year.
No, I think it's also longevity of the filmmaker. I don't deny that had David Lynch not made another thing, Eraserhead wouldn't be remembered. And Mike Flanagan, having not done Hill House and Midnight Mass and a lot of his recent success, perhaps none of this would be happening. So I think there is an element of that as well. But yeah, I love it when old films have a second wind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stick around.
But none of that was on your mind, right? You were just making Psychosis.
I want to make movies, so I made a movie, and I'm hoping it'll lead to another movie. That's kind of my meta motivation. Outside of the film itself, that was my motivation. Was I want to showcase what I can do. I want to prove that I can do it. Like, you can trust me with your money, everybody. Like, that sort of thing. I can put a feature together. It doesn't just look like 5 short films that are disjointed. Like, it feels like a full story. It's well paced. It's well written. So that if I do go somewhere asking for money, I'm not just a random dude with no track record. That's kind of part of it. And then obviously once you start, I started writing the script and I fell in love with the story and got super invested in the film itself. But now that the filmmaking side is over and I'm into the cynical marketing side, it's back to, career-oriented thinking.
You have a smile for everyone listening. Pirie has a smile on his face when you talk about. Is it tough?
Yeah. I'm not upset about
balancing those two sides of going from the creative pursuit to the business side of it. Was that?
Yes. Yeah. And also, like, there's the side to the business that you don't learn unless you do it, because Hollywood's an incredibly cagey, opaque system. They don't. Like, there's information out there, but it's all very much tied up with the dream machine mentality and promises and lies, effectively. So going through the process of making a film is something I was quite familiar with. Like, the making of Psychosis was not the biggest challenge for me. The challenge was negotiating the festival circuit, which I hadn't done to that extent before. Then once you get into the festivals, like, do you hire PR? Do you do, like, what is the release strategy? Then how do you get in touch with distributors? How do you get in touch with sales agents? I did the whole, I initially started with foreign sales agents was where I went first before the festival run. And that was an interesting experience. Nobody wanted to pick up a very strange Australian art house horror thriller because they were only going to get a very small percentage of what would then be a very minimal release, probably. So seeing that side of the business and having some nice feedback, but a good explanation of what they actually look for. And also just knowing that you are able to email these people. Like there's not actually, it's like a gate kept system, but it's not actually, like the gate's not locked. You just need to knock on the door and someone will come out and talk to you. They might not let you in, but you at least get a bit of an idea of what is going on inside. And so that experience has been really great. And then going through distribution and release, like quality control and the legal side of releasing a film and dealing with all the platforms and all the stuff that can go wrong with the platforms, and which we're currently dealing with at the moment. So that stuff's been really good. And I never would have learned that. You don't learn that at film school. You don't learn that making short films. You don't learn that doing corporate videos. Like it's only really doing it that you learn it. So that has been quite rewarding, and hopefully it's setting me up for the next round of projects. So
yeah, actually the corporate advertising thing, you have a client and it's
they tell you what to do and you do it.
You are completely free of what happens with the work once you hand it to the client. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of our work was government, and so nobody really saw it. We did do some advertising that ended up playing in cinemas before films, and we did deal a little bit with cinema advertisers with that, and the world of like standards for TV advertising, which used to be a lot stricter than they are now by the looks, because people can do anything in an ad these days. But back in the day, it was like everything was title safe, nothing could be cropped, everything had to be, the right frame rate, the right aspect, the right everything. Yeah. But the film business is its own thing. Like you don't learn it unless you do it. So that's been really good.
And I was actually inspired to ask two questions by what you shared. So the first question would be, when you went to the international distributors before your festival run, did any of them tell you, well, you better do a festival run before you come back to us?
No, I mean, I'd submitted, this was back in the day when I had my hopes up. So I submit to, my festival strategy was, we'll aim high. We'll go for Sundance and Berlin. We won't do Cannes because I can't.
Sundance, Berlin, Toronto, Venice.
But yeah, we'll do the big ones, and then I'll go to some sales agents. I think, it's a lot of it is me not fully understanding the system perfectly at the time. But that the general advice you get online is, the way to succeed is to get into Sundance and sell it to A24. And that's kind of what you get. So I was like, all right, sure, I'll give that a crack. And then my fallback will be, I'll keep moving down the festival. So you then aim for the B tier festivals, and then the C tier and the D tier. And then you just do local community festivals and grassroots, stuff like that. And so obviously we never got into Sundance, or I have a feeling we were close to Slamdance, because their internal, like you can get data on like who watched and what platform watched your film. Someone in Utah watched Psychosis like 10 times. So I reckon I was pretty close. But you don't get to
I mean, it could have been Sundance screeners too, right? But
I doubt it.
Not based on the time.
Slamdance would have been probably a more realistic expectation. But yeah, so I was going to sales agents saying, look, I've just submitted to Sundance. I'm waiting to hear back. Like, I just wanted to reach out and show you the screener. Because also they can offer festival strategy. And I kind of would have benefited probably from an expert who has connections. And I think that is, as much as it's not nice to say, and festivals obviously do have a lot of more integrity than people give them credit for, because people get salty about getting rejected. But, Sundance does prioritize. Like if Screen Australia sends them a package of their top funded films, like Sundance is going to prioritize. They're going to watch them in a better setting. I even know that Screen Australia has screenings where they bring in festival programmers and put them in a cinema and say, here are our best films. And so when you're competing with that, like the chances of a little independent film getting into a major festival are smaller. So maybe the sales agents, if they like the film, they could then leverage some of the bigger festivals because they have their weight behind it. So that was my thinking going in. But of course, it's the catch-22. They want a film that will get into Sundance, not a film that they can get into. Like, it's, they want an easy decision. And that was the feedback that I got. Like, a lot of them were saying, look, we like the film, but we don't see this playing in cinemas. And the only way they're going to make their money back is by having a theatrical run. And I just had to accept, that's fair enough. That's their business. That's the requirements. Like, they're on a knife's edge all the time as well with their profit margins. Like, they're taking risks. So that was interesting. That was a good learning experience. And I got some feedback that was, at least, it wasn't soul destroying. It was frustrating and, scary, but at least I didn't come out of it with everyone saying, oh, you should quit filmmaking. And, so.
And I imagine, was there a factor that you obviously, besides having, your 10 years of the corporate film and video, but you also were running a business. So you do seem to be more, less bitter, whatever the term is, right? More open, less bitter to the fact that, these people aren't assholes. Some of them could be, but they're not assholes as much as they're just running a business. And they're like, well, if there's not an actor whose people recognize that person's face right off the bat in 17 markets or whatever, then some festivals, and, they really do care about, they need Hollywood actors to walk down the red carpet.
Yeah, well, they have data on that. They know, and I'm even noticing this online with YouTubers looking at, like, what do I need to do in my video to get X number of views? And it's the same thing. They have data that says if you do not have an actor in the IMDb top 2,000, you will not crack this profit level unless there is some X factor. And then that is something they can't account for. So that has to just then be an arbitrary decision where they go on their gut or they are able to take a financial risk. Because I think a lot of independent films get picked up. They've got their tentpole release and then they just like 3 or 4 independent films and they say, well, we'll take them. We're not expecting to make anything off of them. Like, these are just our hobby projects. We're making money off this one and this is like collateralized against it. And, I think a lot of filmmakers just hate the idea that their film is being used as collateral, which I can appreciate. I think maybe because also I was going in with a film that was unusual. It might have been a lot harder to take rejection had I, had a B-list actor and the script was very conventional and I'd constructed it to be a saleable film and then people saying, we don't see the market potential. Like, I can see that being really crushing. But I had gone down the avenue of going, I'm deliberately trying to stand out. I'm deliberately trying to offer something that is a bit of inherently a business risk because it's got no real precedent for it. So for them to say, well, we don't have any data on whether or not that'll work, so we're not willing to take the risk, like, I can accept a bit more of that perhaps.
And it is a bit of a risk, right? Yeah, because, you did not make a rote horror film with a slasher and attractive young people running away. So
yes, yeah. I could have done a found footage horror film and maybe would have been a lot easier to sell. But yeah. And
so amusingly, those films were cutting edge, 20 years ago, right? There was no one had ever seen anything like that. And now we have too many examples.
Well, the fun is in circumventing it. There was One Cut of the Dead, or the zombie film from Japan that did their found footage, and they did quite a cool spin on that. Like, you can do it, but you have to be invested in it. And I don't like making films that I'm not invested in. Like, I don't want to make a film just because it's easy to sell, because then there's no joy in creating the film. It's just a business. And I know that there's people that just need to make money, and so they'll make that kind of film every now and again. But for my first film, I figured, if nobody's going to be giving me $20 million, so I'm not going to be ruining a company by screwing this up, why don't I just do what I want to do and create something, that is a bit riskier, that nobody else would be able to make, and just see if it works. Because if it does work, maybe it sets the precedent. And if it doesn't work, at least it's something that I can be proud of, and I haven't lost, and I haven't, taken someone's mortgage and thrown it away. There's no equity investors out there that are going to be going crazy because I didn't make $3 million in the first month.
Absolutely. Amusingly, it's funny to throw around. I don't know why I feel the need to say it, but like there's companies that like, yeah, the $20 million is also nothing to them, right?
Yeah.
Like they're
They're not going to be
they're-
giving $20 million to anything. Like, it's nothing to them because they're throwing it at something that they feel is a pretty surefire
yeah,
bet.
yeah. But a lot of those companies would be like, no, 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 it has to be 200 million, so we know we've got all these markets covered, and we know that these big explosions and action sequences will play regardless of language. Yeah, there's all
That's a whole different side to the industry that is. I find it all very interesting. I hope that mentality changes soon. It seems like there's a bit of a shift in the way that people are thinking about budgets. But
we are at a very weird. I mean, I guess I'm about to contradict myself in the middle of my statement, but I was going to say we're in a weird time when no one really knows what the fuck is going on with film distribution.
Which is great, because then it forces people to try something new, and then they learn that there is a better way of doing it, or a new way of doing it. And
streaming is proving that an unusual film from Korea can completely resonate with a global audience. And 15 years ago, I bet everyone in Hollywood would have said, no one will watch a film with no white people in it.
Yeah. And Tubi proving that there's a huge audience for African American filmmakers that Hollywood seems to have ignored. Like, that stuff's really great. I really like that there's more platforms for people to just put their work out and be seen. And obviously Tubi's huge now, so you have to troll through a lot of content to find stuff. But even that, like, people willing to do that, people willing to say, I'm just going to go on Tubi and watch something, and I don't need it to be marketed to me for $100 million. I don't need to see it on every billboard in every capital city. That stuff's really exciting. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where the industry goes with that.
Well, what for you personally, do you have a notebook full of ideas or some scripts? Do you know what you're doing next, or you feel a need to see where Psychosis goes first?
Part of it is wanting to see where Psychosis goes, because obviously the success of that is something that I can leverage. So if it does very well, I can say even me at my weirdest is marketable. So if I do something a little bit more mainstream, that's going to be easier for an investor to pick up. At the very moment, there's nothing that's in discussions or greenlit or stuff like that. But I am writing, I think, 4 screenplays. I've got one that is already, I'm going to do another pass on it, but it has been up on the blacklist. It's not on like the official final end of year blacklist, but it was in the top 200. They have their shortlist. So I managed to crack that, which was great. But the blacklist is also difficult to break through on. So that, I've gotten a lot of really good feedback on that, and I'm polishing that script up so that it is ready to go when I start marketing it, I guess. Like, it's on me at the moment. There's no distributors knocking on my door to say like what's next. But the beauty of it is I can always go to them and tell them that I've got a new project. So that's all in the pipeline at the moment. And I'm just sort of deciding what is actually the next best project, because there's things of different budget levels and ideas in different genres. And I'd like to write books. I do art as well. So I'm a painter and a printmaker as well. So I've got lots to do. At the moment, it's even looking like I'd like to do more writing because I've got time now. I haven't had a lot of time because of the film. Like, the process of making Psychosis and then releasing Psychosis had become a full-time job. So having a bit of a break to do like literature writing is quite appealing to me at the moment as well. So I'm looking into like the publishing world, which is like conveniently very similar to the film world in the way that they acquire and distribute stuff. So yeah, looking at that, looking at doing all sorts of things. Pretty much anything is open to me. I'm one of these people that like really loves, when I find something I like, I want to do that. So gaming, and I'd make a game. I'd direct a game if I could do something like Hideo Kojima, like doing game directing. That'd be fun. So I'm open to anything and anything that involves me telling a story or doing some world building or, anything artistic like that. So I've got my options open for sure. But there's one script which feels like a pretty natural follow-up to Psychosis, which is very close to being done. I want to do another pass on it and then see how we go. But again, like maybe it's a risk. So maybe I need to have another one in the back pocket just to say, all right, you didn't like that one, but here's another script that's ready, going in, not being too, what's the word? You don't want to go in and make it seem like, I'm, I haven't really been thinking about it. You want to be the expert. You want to have stuff ready to go.
Yeah. I don't know what the world is like today, but back in my day, and I am sounding like a very old person, but I am an old person. I used to always tell all my friends, before you go into a meeting, don't you dare walk in with one script. You need 5 to 10, but also make the first 3 bad so they can say no to your first 3 you say, and then the 4th or 5th you say your best idea, and then they can feel like, okay, I'm picking that one. Because you're dealing with the ego. Maybe it used to be the ego of that person in the room with you. They had to go, you suck, you suck, you suck. Oh, that's good. Because first they got to put you down.
Well, they need to assert dominance. Yeah. Okay. That's good. I might plan a few treatments that are deliberately kind of shit and just say, oh no, wait, you don't like that one. Okay. Well, here, I'll try this one. And that's good, actually.
Honestly, it used to work, but that was back in the day when there was a bit more of a structure, and Hollywood studios each bought something like 500 scripts per year just to buy them and lock them up and, option them and say, okay, people be like, I sold my script. And I'm like, you sold an option.
Yeah.
and they have I wish I could tell you your film's going to be made. I really wish I could, but what can you do? It is a tough one, but the barn doors have been blown open now.
Yes, it definitely feels. I'm a lot more confident in a lot of ways, moving into another project, having done Psychosis, and it just is to be seen over, I guess, the next 6 months, the next year. What kind of response Psychosis gets, and if it maintains a good audience. A lot of that stuff is going to be up to the viewers, I guess, to say, like, I can market it as much as I want, but the word of mouth is based on the quality of the film, not the quality of the marketing. So you just have to let it go and see what happens.
Yeah, well, you're definitely a person who cares about quality. I was going to say, you mentioned artwork and stuff. Should I bring up the artwork thing that we were talking? You were kicking around the idea of sending some artwork out to the Sherman Oaks Film Festival for us to display for people. Yeah,
I would love to. I sent some out to Philadelphia. They had their festival recently, and the postal system. I don't know who ended up. It never got delivered. They just came back, which was really frustrating. So I'm tentative now, because I would have loved to send some artwork through, to the distributor so they could then send stuff out, because then at least I know that they've arrived in America, because I can't track. Once it leaves Australia, I don't get tracking, even if I pay for tracking, which is ridiculous. So I'm scared to do that, but I have a lot of different things that I can do for giveaways, like promo codes to watch the film. I've got some artwork, so I'd love to be able to send it out. It might even be something more that, like, we promise it and then I'll have to post it to the winner. It's just, the limitations of being stuck in Australia and sending prizes out becomes like international shipping. And if people want it quickly, it's like $100 to send a letter, which is kind of daunting. But I'm doing a lot for the marketing. I painted a mural here in Adelaide to market the film. We did like a glow in the dark mural, which was really fun, and a lot of people really liked. Like, you can go up to it with a UV flashlight, like a crime scene, and it glows in the dark. I've just been doing a bit of everything, just trying to get the word out, make the film, because the film obviously is very it's artistic. Being an artist, it's got a lot of artistic influences, And so I want to try and use art to promote it as much as possible as well. We just have to overcome all the hurdles of the fact that the postage system at the moment is crap. But that might just be a Philadelphia issue. Hopefully it's just the Philadelphia Post, and maybe the LA Post is good and the New York Post is good. But
I've
had a lot of problems delivering hard drives to the US to get the film actually to the distributor. That came back. That never got delivered. So it's a scary process, because each time you send a hard drive, it's like $80 postage, and it has to be there by a certain release date. And then you got to upload it. Our internet speed in Australia is not particularly fantastic either. So if you're sending a 90 gigabyte film master to a distributor, for me at home, if I tried to do that, I reckon it would take like a year to upload that on our home internet.
So you're going to say a few days.
And held out. Yeah. So I have to pay a company that has like the government access to the government speed internet, which is actually like world standard internet. So everything's just much more expensive dealing with international shipping. But
we just had an experience for our June festival. A filmmaker based in the UK he made the film in Brazil, and they won a bunch of awards. And he said, "Oh, send trophies to the person who won Best Actor. Send a trophy to the cinematographer." He wanted them all. He wanted these 3 people to get their trophies, and he got his in the UK like within 2 weeks. And theirs was sitting. Those other 3 trophies were sitting in customs in Brazil for weeks and weeks, if not months. And then one of them got it, and the rest came back, I guess. And then there was a claim by customs that they were the people just had to come get them. I don't know. It was.
And then they don't tell you. Yeah.
But it's very
I would love to.
shocking
I'd love
for me.
to. Yeah. But no, the plan definitely is to do giveaways and send, handmade artwork. Like I've done a whole series of prints on a couple of the characters from the film, so people get like their favorite character. I'd love to do some giveaways like that. It's just when it comes down to the postage, and if it has to be at someone's door by a certain time, that's when I get nervous. But
it's hard to do. But I appreciate that you're not doing the NFT thing.
Hell no. Yeah, no. That was I was even against that when it started. I
just didn't understand it. I admit I don't get it.
I think that's because it didn't inherently make sense. I get what they were trying to do, and it obviously has applications. But I think the whole investing in digital art, I don't think that quite rightly died out.
There's no way it's not copyable, and there's no way there's more value to that version.
It's all arbitrary. It's like you get bragging rights, basically. You're paying a lot of money to brag.
It's never a bad business model to appeal to the rich who have money to burn to show off.
No, definitely not.
But it's not very artistically rewarding, that's for sure.
No, I think the problem was when it bled into a lot of genuine artists trying to make money. Like they just wanted to sell their work, and they got into NFTs and they got screwed over, and that kind of stuff. That bothered me a lot. When it was just like Silicon Valley tech bros pretending that they owned the Mona Lisa or something, like that was fun because you could see them. They weren't going to be bankrupt if that didn't work out for them, or maybe they deserved to lose a lot of their savings on something stupid like that. But when it was like local artists trying to sell their work and it was all getting stolen, and it was just it was a bad period. But yeah.
All right. Well, I distracted you with the NFT topic, but anything else we should mention before we wrap it up? And by the way, did I fuck up? Did I not have you say where people can watch the film when we introduction?
No, we've kind of skirted around. The film exists, and we've talked about how much
we kind of did. Maybe
how fun it was to make, and but no, the film is available now to watch. It's not available on every platform that we want it to be available on right now. We're having some trouble, but it's definitely available everywhere on Amazon. So you can get it Amazon transactional. So you don't need to have a Prime account, which is great. So that's just a one-time rental. I think you can buy it as well, which is cool. It's also available on Hulu and Vudu and Hoopla, which all of these don't make any sense to me in Australia because we don't have access to them. But they are apparently available in the US on pretty much every platform that you can get, like Spectrum and Fios, and it's available for free on Fandango at home, I believe. So if you want to watch it for free and you don't mind ads, you can catch it there. And then hopefully any day now, we're hoping Tubi will come through. That was supposed to come out at the start of the month, and we were going to have the Halloween season to promote Tubi. And something has gone wrong, and we're in the middle of dealing with that. And that's just become a process, which, apparently these things happen from time to time. And like I was saying before, the film is going to have a long life, so it'll come out on Tubi. We'll let everyone know. We'll do a big advertising push to make sure that people know where they can see it. But also, if you you go to psychosisfilm.com, that will have everywhere where it will be available. Anytime you check in, it will have everything that is available listed there. So yeah, check it out. Follow us on social media. Follow Psychosis Film or Psychosis Movie or whichever name we have on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or all of the platforms. And we'll be letting people know where they can watch it, hopefully for free, or if you're happy to chuck us some money, you can rent it on Amazon, watch it without ads, watch it with good headphones on good speakers. Yeah.
I cannot resist my pitch that if you're listening to my voice and you're gonna watch Psychosis, first of all, you should watch Psychosis. I mean, you should watch it without ads. It's a film. It's a great film, and it's going to grab you early, and you don't want to be interrupted. And I assume Tubi does. I know Tubi lets you choose where the ads fall.
I assume. We haven't got Tubi going yet. There's It also depends.
The other ones.
If a film is doing really well, they might run more ads, and they may be placed arbitrarily. I'm not sure. I don't have a huge problem with it. I just know that the chances of it interrupting a line of dialogue is pretty good. And Psychosis maybe isn't the best film, like if there's a certain line. But at the same time, Psychosis is it's not a complicated plot. It's a complicated presentation. So, I feel like if you miss a few details, you can still appreciate the film as the experience. And it is something that I would encourage anyone, if they want to rewatch it, like go back and find little details that aren't as obvious the first time around. Like, it's definitely created to reward repeat viewings or attentive viewings, or, replaying certain bits. Like there's a lot of hidden Easter eggs in the auditory hallucinations and the voices. So yeah. If an ad interrupts it, look, it's also, I just like people being able to see the film. So if they want to watch it for free and they don't mind the ads, I'm happy for the ad to just pop up. Tell people to buy a car
completely understandable,
and back into it,
and very practical too. Obviously, we're in an era where I know everyone expects things to be free, especially because I guess Netflix has almost trained everyone. Somehow you pay a subscription and then everything should be free. And people go to Amazon Prime Video and they're like, I have a personal experience with something doing very well when it's free and not too well when they have to pay. But, you're talking about an independently made film. It's very original. So, just consider paying a little bit to watch it. I mean, everyone jokes it's less than a Starbucks coffee, or it's
For some reason, it's a different, psychologically, it's a different purchase when it's like you're hungry, so you'll pay $5 for a hamburger, but you're in the mood to watch a film, you're not going to spend $5. Like, I get that, and it's also ease of access. You don't want to have to get your credit card out every time you want to watch a film, and even though that's what you do when you go to the cinema. So, but the experience and the relaxation at home, I get it, and it's all based on, like, if people want to watch it on their phone, I think we were talking about that earlier as well. People want to watch it on their phone. I hope that you can still catch everything on your phone, but if you want to watch it on your phone, I'm happy for that. So however people want to watch it. It's one of the, I think, independent filmmakers, I'm sure most people will agree. Like, you've made a film, you just want people to watch it. I don't really mind how they watch it. You watch it whatever way suits you.
I
Just
do
don't
hear
have your
that a
TV
lot.
set too dark or set too quiet. Is my because the grade of Psychosis is really grungy, and I'm sure there are going to be people out there who say this film is too dark and it's a TV setting, or like motions. Like, people are going to be watching it with motion smoothing on, and strange TV settings and saturation settings and stuff. So, results may vary. But
That's true. And brightness, the brightness, and I love that you are. And actually, a lot of filmmakers I talk to now are more open to different ways people see it. But Lord knows, on a phone, you got to set your brightness. Like, if you're going to watch a film, raise the brightness, because there's a lot of attention to detail in cinema. You're not just watching cat videos.
No, and it is a black and white, high contrast, grainy film. So if the TV is quite dark, or if it's an older TV, a couple of shots might look pretty dim. I know that I've had a few people say that the film is quite dark, and I've watched it on my computer and then on my TV, and then I've seen it out in the world, and it's different everywhere you watch it. So there's only so much you can control for. But I definitely encourage people, if they want to watch it with headphones, that's the way to go.
Isn't that frustrating? My last complete tangent for you is even in my home, I have two televisions. Just we're a 2 TV household, and then I have my computer, and the color. I'm about to mention the Indie Channel in my outro, but the color of the yellow in the Indie Channel logo is different on every TV.
Yes. Yeah. And there's nothing you can account for that as much as you can in color grading. But, you have to color grade on an optimal screen. So that in best conditions, it looks good. And then someone goes and plays it on a TV that's had, it's fallen down or something, and there's a issue with the color, or you can't win.
And even me, and I'm relatively anal about image, and I cannot, I've obviously I make Mr. Nolan happy. The smoothing is removed. The second I bring a TV home, I go in and I change my settings. Yep. But there's nothing you can do about the way that Sony and Samsung present color differently. Like, they just have chips that control that. And it's very...
You just calibrate it to industry standard, and then let the world figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
But black and white's black and white on every screen. So at least I'm covered in that regard.
That is true. For sure. Excellent. All right. Well, I'll wrap us up by saying thank you, Pirie, and the links that you mentioned, whether it's psychosisfilm.com and we'll make those clickable links everywhere, and you can email them to me so I can make sure we get them right. Or because you mentioned Psychosis, whether it's at Psychosis Film or at Psychosis Movie.
Yeah, different social media, because Psychosis is unfortunately a name that a lot of short films also have. And there was a film in 2010 under the name Psychosis, which Google still confuses with. So there'll be Psychosis 2010, and then the trailer will be mine. So, hopefully audiences can tell the difference between, a film with 1.2 stars on IMDb and my film that's just, which is hopefully going to do a bit better than that. Yeah, it's just the Google algorithms. It probably should have had a different name that was a little bit more unique. But I'll make sure that I send you all the correct links, and you can share those. But Psychosis Film is the website, and that will link to everything. So if you can't find it, you can at least go through the website.
Perfect, and we'll make that website clickable. And anyhow, I'll just get us out of here because we could chat another hour.
Yeah.
By the way, before I mention the next thing I'm going to mention, I'm just going to say, Pirie said something very important. Watch his film and then actually go review it. Review it on IMDb, on Letterboxd, whatever it is, because that really makes it. If you enjoy an independent film, I know it's a big ask, but take a few minutes out of your life and give it 5 stars, give it a review, because that really helps boost it in algorithms.
Amazon's got their little star rating, leave a review. There's but also another thing that we're trying to push with our marketing campaign is just like tell a friend to watch it. That seems to be the most effective. And the most effective thing is the word of mouth. So if you liked it, like put it up on Facebook or in a group, or go on Reddit Film and post it there, and stuff like that really helps, because the more it's mentioned online, even outside of reviews, the more it creates. And this is for any film that you like as well. So I'm not just trying to promote my own film here. Like if there's any independent film out there that you really love that you don't feel is getting enough attention, tell people on Reddit to go and see it, because Google will promote Reddit responses above websites now. So it really does encourage just like letting people know and talking about film recommendations and the little reviews, not just the IMDb reviews. Yeah.
It really does matter. And I find I'm a bitter fan of independent cinema, but the Tom Cruise movies, they don't need you to write a review. Support the indies, support the ones where people made something from their hearts. What can I say? There's all right. I'll hop off of that soapbox. And
thank you.
What made me think of that was I was about to say, please like and subscribe to the podcast. If you want to learn more about the Discover Indie Film podcast, just go to discoverindiefilm.com. On social media, it's always at DIFwins. I might have mentioned, or I probably just hinted at the fact that this podcast gave birth to a TV series on Amazon Prime Video of the same name. If you just type in Discover Indie Film, there's Discover India, and then I think Discover Indie Film's an autocomplete. So once you get that E in Indie, I think it's the only thing that comes up. Please watch that, because it's just short films handpicked from the festival circuit, brought home to you, 99 cents an episode or $7.99 a season. And this is where I'll make another pitch of, look, we're talking $8 to see like 25 to 30 shorts that were generally made by people who spent their own money to make them. So $8 isn't the biggest ask, I don't think. Anyhow, so that's Discover Indie Film. We mentioned that Psychosis played at the Sherman Oaks Film Festival. We hold that one every December, and you can learn more if you go to ShermanOaksFF.com, and it's at ShermanOaksFF on social media. There is the sister festival that I mentioned, Film Invasion Los Angeles. You can learn about that one. We hold it every June. Go to filminvasionla.com, and it's at filminvasionla on social media. And I know right before this, I mentioned the color yellow and the Indie Channel logo because I'm enthusiastic and have no respect for my personal time. I got roped into like starting a bit of a smart TV app streaming service that just highlights great indie film that deserves your attention. So just go to indiechannel.tv or on any smart TV that, not all of them, I guess Samsung has their own thing, but if you've got, it's Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, Android TV, and your smartphone all can have an app from the Indie Channel. And, it's a little bit of a socialist experiment. We talked a lot about business. The idea is 50% of gross receipts get shared evenly among all the filmmakers, regardless of clicks and views and completions, because everyone who puts their work on there deserves an equal share. So, the idea is if we can get enough subscribers to the Indie Channel, people who make indie shorts will get a little bit something back, and including indie features too. There's some great features on there too. There's stand-up comedy. There's all kinds of stuff, but all independently produced. So I think that's all I had to say. Pirie, thanks so much.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a great chat.
And for those of you listening, the podcast that releases a couple days after this one will be Pirie answering the Discover Indie Film 4 questions, which I won't bother listing out now. All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening.